Good morning, everyone. I'd like to remind you that if you have a cell phone, out of respect for our guest speakers and for the consideration of those in the audience, that you silence or turn your phone off. Thank you. I can see everyone reaching for their purse or wallet or whatever. The presentation today is going to be a little bit different from what you're used to. You were asked as you arrived if you had a question that you would like to ask Dora Vasquez, and Greg Stanton, that you write it down. So there will not be someone going around with a microphone. However, if as the two speakers are giving their presentation, and a question arises for you, there will be people walking around on the sides and in the back who will give you a paper if you raise your hand, and you can write your question, and they will make sure that the question is taken up on the stage. Okay? So today we have two guest speakers with us at Friendship Village this morning, Representative Greg Stanton and Dora Vasquez. Representative Stanton has been here at the village many times. He is a friend of ours and has served is the representative for the 4th Congressional District of Arizona since 2019. Greg was previously mayor of Phoenix and was on the Phoenix City Council. Welcome back. Dora Vasquez is new to the village. She is the executive director of the Arizona Alliance for Retired Americans. Dora is a lifelong resident of Arizona and a native of Pinal County. She has more than 25 years' experience in local and state government and has served as policy advisor to former Arizona Governor Janet Napolitano. I never can say. Thank you. I can never say her last name. Welcome, Dora, to Friendship Village. And now I'll turn it over to Dora, who will then turn it over to Greg, and then we'll do the question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go up on the stage. Yes, please. Good morning. I'm Dora Vasquez, Executive Director of the Arizona Alliance for Retired Americans. We are a grassroots advocacy organization with 48,000 members in Arizona who are fighting to ensure everyone has a healthy and secure retirement. I would like to thank Congressman Stanton for inviting me to this very important town hall. We are working to strengthen and expand Social Security and increase benefits, protect Medicare, and lower the price of prescription drugs, helping older Arizonans make their voices heard and get the attention of our elected officials. And I will tell you, we can count on Representative Stanton. He's always on our side. So we also work to educate retirees and make sure that the savings they've earned over a lifetime are not stolen by scammers or con artists. So today I'm going to talk a little bit and share information about the scams that the Arizona Attorney General's Office, the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, and of course Congressman Stanton are working on to protect you from. The FBI estimates that seniors lose more than $3 billion each year to fraudsters. So why are seniors common targets? There's many factors. Older Americans have more time to accumulate wealth, which is often invested in their homes and retirement savings. Some scams target older adults because of perceived or real vulnerability. And when older adults are scammed, they're often too embarrassed to report the crime, making it that much harder to catch the perpetrators. Right now, the most common scams we're seeing here in Arizona is the fake lottery. Seniors are getting calls saying they've won millions of dollars and need to pay administrative fees or taxes to receive the money. And of course, some of you, I have heard the grandparent scam, and there's two variations of this. A fraudster posing as law enforcement or medical professionals claiming to represent a family member in distress, saying, I'm behind on my rent, my car is broken. They'll call and ask you for money. This fraudster might also pose as a grandchild by directly asking the grandparent to guess who is calling. Scammers ask for money to be wired to pay for emergency medical bills or legal fees. There's tech support scams, and I actually got one of these this week in my inbox. Scammers claiming to be from legitimate companies demand payment for unnecessary tech support services or to fix a problem that doesn't exist. Sometimes scammers will create fake websites with a number to call to receive technical support. And there's Social Security scam. Scammers pretending that they represent the Social Security Administration and need money to adjust a senior's cost of living adjustment. You will never get a call from the Social Security Administration asking you that. The IRS scam is a senior receives a phone call or voice message claiming to be the IRS. The scammer will say that the senior owes taxes and could be sent to jail if they don't receive payment right away. There's Medicare impersonators, scammers trying to steal personal information and identify by calling and asking for information in order to issue the senior a new Medicare card or offer you discounted additional coverage. And we even see this on TV. You see the advertisements that say you can get discounted Medicare. Well, there's no discounted Medicare anywhere. And then they get the information and then sell that to others. So, the list goes on. So what do? We don't reveal personal information. Con artists can try to get you to provide them with personal information like your Social Security number, account numbers, passwords, credit cards, or other identifying information which can be sold to fraudsters. Avoid odd payment types. Scammers will often ask you to send them money with a wire transfer, money order, cryptocurrency, a payment app, or a gift card. Legitimate businesses will accept credit cards, so be very suspicious if you're asked for another form of payment. And avoid suspicious links. Don't click on unsolicited email, text, or social media messages. Always ask a friend or family before giving out your credit card number or money. Ask a friend or family member if the request or situation seems suspicious, particularly if you're being told by someone you don't know that a friend or relative needs help. Add extra security to your accounts. Many online accounts now let you turn on a security feature called multi-factor authentication. Make sure to turn those on. So you may need also to enter a code that's sent to you or email before accessing your account. Enabling this extra security measure is worth the time and trouble because it protects your accounts even if scammers get hold of your username and password. So if you see something, say something. Here in Arizona, we encourage you to contact the Office of Attorney General Chris Mays. Her team has seen a rise on scam and consumer fraud for seniors, and they will take legal action against those who prey on older people. You can call Attorney General Chris Mays' helpline at 602-542-2124, or you can visit her office. I will tell you can also contact Congressman Stanton's constituent services, who will direct you to the people that can help you. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you Congressman Greg Stanton. He is a friend of seniors. As I said previously, we can always count on him. Throughout his career, Greg Stanton has worked tirelessly to deliver results for Arizona families. Serving as Phoenix mayor from 2012 to 2018, he focused on building an economy rooted in innovation and trade. Under his leadership, Phoenix created thousands of quality jobs and saw the highest wage growth in the nation. Congressman Stanton is currently serving his third term in Congress and has earned a reputation for working across the aisle. He is focused on planning for the state's water future, investing in public transportation and infrastructure, building Arizona's economy of the future, and lowering costs for working families. And he's also working to lower the cost of drugs prices for seniors and all Americans. Representative Stanton is a member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the Foreign Affairs Committee. So join me in welcoming Congressman Stanton. Thank you.
Thanks, Dora. I think I got a mic here, so I'll just stand in the middle. But thank you for that kind introduction. Thank you, Friendship Village, for having me for a discussion of what's going on in Congress and take a few of your important questions. It's great to see an awesome turnout here today. Dora, you should know, is a fighter. She fights for not only seniors, but in our entire community. And I'm telling you, it's one of the lessons I've learned in politics. You want to be successful, listen to Dora Vasquez, because she carries a lot of votes in her pocket. The Alliance has a lot of supporters, a lot of friends, and she pushes hard for good policies that support seniors in Arizona and around the United States of America. And I do support the Alliance because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for Arizona. So thank you for that kind introduction. Look, as you went through my resume, I've been in public life and public service for a long period of time. I grew up in Phoenix, in West Phoenix, near Metro Center, if you know that part of town. My dad was a shoe salesman, sold shoes at JCPenney for 35 years, took the city bus every day to and from work. That's why I'm such a big supporter of public transportation, because I've seen how it benefits working class families like the one that I was so lucky to grow up in. My mom was a part-time English teacher at Glendale Community College for a long time. My family stressed service and education through our church, St. Jerome's Church in the West Valley. They ran a group called Christian Needs Network. It was a bunch of volunteers from our church people would deliver to our home food, clothing, diapers, and shoes and other necessities. And then we'd work to get those necessities out to people in the community that needed them. I only later found out when I got in city politics that collecting all that stuff made your house basically a warehouse, which is against the city zoning. I'm glad I had to tell my mom that we did something illegal when we were growing up. But I was lucky enough to go away for college, law school, came back, and then got involved in local politics, and I loved it. I got elected to city council, and then between council and mayor, for 2 years, I worked at the Attorney General's office. I was a deputy attorney general for a great public leader named Terry Goddard, an awesome guy, an awesome leader. So I learned from the best, one of the most ethical public officials you'll ever see. And then when the mayor's job came open, I ran for it and I won. I got to serve as mayor for 2 terms. And then I couldn't give it up. I love public service. And so when Senator Sinema switched from the House to the Senate, I ran for the congressional seat. And I was lucky enough to get it. So my district, Arizona District 4, the best district in all of Arizona, includes Tempe, includes Ahwatukee Foothills, most of Mesa, and most of Chandler. And if you follow politics, you know that we just went through the redistricting last time around. So they have to switch around the district. So I got to pick up more of Mesa and even more of Chandler. About 30% of Congressman Andy Biggs' district got moved into my district, so it makes it a very competitive district. So I love it. I love service. It's a bizarre addiction, and I love it. I wouldn't want to do anything else with my life. And I'm proud of the things that so far we've been able to get done during the terms that I've served in Congress. I just want to focus in on a few, and then I know we got a bunch of questions, and that's the most important part of an event like this here at Friendship Village. But God, last term, an incredibly productive Congress. If you like public transportation and transportation infrastructure investment, I mean, the United States, if you want our country to succeed, invest in education and invest in infrastructure. That's how we compete with our other countries that we're competing with internationally. And we did it. The largest infrastructure investment in American history, a $1.2 trillion. You're already seeing the benefits here in Arizona and around the country. You saw just yesterday the announcement as it relates to broadband, $1 billion of broadband that's going to bring high-speed internet to people across Arizona, including in rural areas, including our tribal communities that are kind of far-flung areas that it's really hard to reach. An incredible achievement. It's going to allow people to start businesses or have telehealth visits right from their very home. Obviously, education. Today's education, you better have access to the internet, because not every education occurs in a classroom. A lot of it occurs online through tutoring or even taking online classes or whatever. So it's a huge advancement for our economy. That was a major win. the CHIPS and Science Act. I mean, the semiconductor industry, it's going gangbusters here in Arizona. And it is incredibly important industry for the future of our country, the future of our military. I mean, think about all the weapons systems that we have that are based on semiconductors. Well, we can't be importing them from China or other countries. We need to make sure for security reasons that they are made right here in the United States of America. We're lucky right down the road to have Intel, which, I mean, tens of thousands of jobs in Intel, and they're growing exponentially. And then in North Phoenix, the largest investment in an economic development project in Arizona history, TSMC, and Apple, which we all have our phones that are from Apple, has agreed to source their chips in the phone from that plant right here, manufactured right here in our community. So the CHIPS and Science Act has been a huge benefit to the American economy, and really an industrial policy to make sure that we are competitive with countries around. We're not outsourcing everything, that we do much more manufacturing, including advanced manufacturing right here in America. And then finally, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the bill that had the healthcare benefits that Dora was referencing. It took a lot of negotiation. It didn't go as far as I would have liked, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but some major achievements when it comes to pricing, particularly of pharmaceuticals. For those on Medicare, it's going to cap the cost of insulin at $35. Total out-of-pocket cost per year, $2,000, which is, I can only see the looks on some people's faces, what a great advancement that will be. It will finally allow negotiation of a certain number of pharmaceuticals. Starts at 10, and then it increases every year. But in the next few years, you're going to see as the federal government uses its purchasing power to actually negotiate with these pharmaceutical companies instead of just giving away the store, it's going to reduce our drug prices. As you know, the United States has the highest cost of pharmaceuticals in the world, and we're basically subsidizing lower prices across the world. That's not acceptable. The people here in our community, our country, should have the same upside as everybody else. The reason why I say it's not good enough is because it's a goal of mine that the benefits that I just described for Medicare recipients become benefits for everyone in the United States of America, because the pharmaceutical industry does have so much power, pricing power, et cetera. Everyone should get those benefits, and we should negotiate on all drug prices, not just on a limited few. So it's a win. It's a good win, and I'm really proud of that win, but we can go even further. I think we do need to go even further. Water, you mentioned. Water may be the biggest challenge that we are facing here in Arizona. I mean, if you're a longtime resident, can you believe we have over 7 million people that live here in Arizona? I mentioned semiconductor and some of the other economic development that's occurring. It's amazing what's occurring in our state, but that means it's using more water. So as more people are moving here, more industry is moving here. We're still sustaining a large agricultural industry in Arizona. It's putting a lot of pressure on the Colorado River, which is one of the main sources of water, at the same time that we are in a 20-year drought. The worst drought in 1,200 years here in the desert Southwest. Well, something's got to give. You can't do growth in housing, growth in industry, keep at the same level of farming and agriculture, have a diminishing source of the Colorado River. At some point, the math doesn't work out. So that's why we did put such significant resources into the infrastructure deal, $8 billion, to help deal with drought in the western part of the United States. And a major agreement just occurred between Arizona, California, and Nevada to reduce our usage of water by 3 million acre feet, which is, if you follow this area, you know that is a pretty good amount of water. Mostly, to be perfectly honest, mostly by compensating people that are large water users now to stop using water or using less water. That's a good deal because it buys us some time as we do longer range planning on water. But ultimately, that's not the long-term solution. Conservation of water, us using less water long-term, us meaning all of us in this room, using less water in this and people across the state, we need more conservation projects. Let me give you an example. As the congressman for the area, I work very closely with Tempe. and we're bringing online a water reclamation facility so that Tempe can recycle a lot more of their water. The more we can recycle water, the less water we draw down from the Colorado River. Chandler, I mentioned Intel and their growth. Semiconductors use a lot of water, but they need to use more recycled water, not new water from the Colorado River. So we are providing federal dollars for them to significantly increase their Ocotillo water reclamation facility so that Intel can recycle all of the water that they use for that facility. It's a win-win for everybody in terms of creating good jobs, that important industry, but doing it in a way that doesn't draw down from the Colorado River. And obviously over time, we're gonna have to look for new sources of water, water augmentation, and obviously desalinization, looking at ocean water and the ability to desalinate that and have it transported long-term is one option about how we can augment that water. But that's why water infrastructure development, so that we can recycle more water, is a huge part of the water future here in Arizona. The way I like to say it is the drought conditions that we're dealing with, they're serious. We can manage them, but it's not going to be inexpensive. The options are going to be, a lot more water infrastructure investment, which we should be doing, so that we can deliver non-potable water. We shouldn't be like watering our golf courses with drinking water anymore. All of that should be recycled water, and we just need to put in the investment so that we can get it done. And then one final thing I wanted to highlight before we take questions, and that is my team. All the people in the back are part of my constituent service team, my outreach team. They are all awesome. Dora, as you mentioned, they will deal with scams or whatever. Like, even if you call us and it's a city issue or a state issue, I'm friends with Chris Mays. I'm friends with the mayors in my district. We all work very closely together to make sure that people get the best constituent service. But for you, the main thing that we deal with, the main issues that we deal with in constituent service, you could imagine. Well, number one, these days, passports. Everybody wants a passport, and everybody forgot to look at the expiration date of their passport, so we got to help them get a renewed passport. But then people that have issues with the Social Security Administration, the IRS in terms of getting their tax returns, et cetera. Maybe you have a veteran in your family that's not getting the full veterans benefits that they deserve. Me and my team, we are your advocates. That's what we do. We've already recovered this year almost $750,000 in benefits for the people that we represent just in our district. This is your money that you deserve, that we need to make sure you get the benefits that you have deserved. I think we're going to show a short video in which we're going to brag a little bit about the work that we do, and then we'll go to the questions. Let's roll the video.
Hi, I'm Greg Stanton. It's a real privilege to serve as your representative in Congress. My focus has been, and always will be, to meet the challenges we have here at home. One of my most important responsibilities is to provide effective constituent services for the people living in our district. And my team and I are always ready to cut through red tape at the federal agencies and solve problems for Arizonans. We often hear from seniors who need help getting the benefits they've earned, and we do our best to deliver for them. Let me share just a few examples. Joyce reached out to our office when she was being denied the Social Security benefits that she was entitled to after her husband passed away. They both paid into the system for decades, but she had hit a wall with the Social Security Administration. After Joyce reached out to my office, we were able to get her benefits within just a few days. And then there's Deanne, who in 2023 was still waiting on her tax returns from 2021, with no help or communication from the IRS. Seniors shouldn't have to pinch pennies because the government can't fulfill its obligations. Shortly after we contacted the Taxpayer Advocate Service, Deanne let us know that she finally received her refund check with the full expected amount. This year alone, we've been able to return more than $670,000 to the people of Arizona's 4th District. So please know my team and I are always here to help. If you ever need assistance with something, no matter how big or small the issue, give my office a call at 602-956-2463 or visit my website at stanton.house.gov/help.
All right, there it is. That's my bragging video about how we do. We want that number to be as high as possible. And so, Dora, I think we got the questions that have been prepared, and then I'll address those. And then if you have more, let my team know, and we can get at the door. We can ask any question you got about what's going on in the United States Congress.
Thank you, Congressman Stanton. I will tell you he's being very humble when he talks about, he said he was bragging. That wasn't bragging. I will tell you that when we talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, which was an historic legislation last year, one of the things that passed through those bills were investments that are going to help seniors that include lowering drug prices, but also there's other investments, for example, climate investments. One of the things that Congressman Stanton championed was making sure that we can breathe. Climate pollution grants are now available, and the state just applied. So we're going to get millions of dollars that are going to help people like me who have asthma or have trouble breathing. We're going to have investments here. And those are the little things, the everyday things that he's fighting for that have touched our lives as seniors. So he really has been a champion. So with that, I'm going to go to the question portion of this. What is, Representative Stanton, what is the status of the Farm Bill, and what is your position on the Farm Bill?
Okay, the status of the Farm Bill is that it has not gone before the Agriculture Committee yet. It is one of the must-pass bills for this legislative cycle. I guess the big must-pass bills that no matter what else happens in the United States Congress, we better pass it. Number one, the National Defense Bill, the National Defense Authorization Bill. The committee that I serve on is Transportation Infrastructure. The Federal Aviation Administration has to get reauthorized every 5 years. That did pass our committee, by the way, and it's going to go to the full floor. So the FAA reauthorization, the Farm Bill, and then, of course, a budget. I don't even want to talk about the budget because we were having a nice discussion so far. That's going to be a rough one. But the Farm Bill is an incredibly important one. By the way, it deals not just with agricultural policy affecting the farming community, although that's an incredibly important part of it. It also affects school lunches and the school lunch policy, or SNAP benefits, people that need food benefits because of their wages or whatever that aren't what they need to be. We want to make sure that people still have the opportunity to have healthy meals in their lives. And in Arizona, incredibly important because forest fires are a huge issue here. Management of the forest system, forest management policies are a big part of the bill as well. So a lot of issues there. Also, farm workers. People who are farm workers, we need to make sure they are treated with dignity and respect. These are people that do backbreaking work, and they put food on our tables. Thank the good Lord that people are in a position to do that to help us. We don't think about farm workers a lot, but we want to make sure that farm workers are treated with dignity and respect and earn fair wages for the benefits they provide to our society. So that is maybe going to be part of the bill. You could tell, hope it's going to be part of the bill. Look, I'm a team player in politics. I'm I guess a moderate member. I'm not one of the members of Congress that if you turn on your TV at night and watch Fox News or MSNBC, you're probably not going to see my face on TV a lot. I don't like to do that. I'm more like getting things done. I'm a mayor. I bring a mayor's mentality to the job, which is you work with whoever you got to work with to advance things in Congress. I know you read all about how highly partisanized everything is. But I'll be honest, most members of Congress, not all of them, because some of them are famous and go on TV all the time and try to stir up trouble. Most of us, they're boring just like me. We're just there to get things done and want to get things done. And so generally, if there's a bipartisan agreement on the Farm Bill, we haven't seen that agreement yet, but if there's a bipartisan agreement, probably I'm going to support that bill.
Great. Thank you. Okay, our next question. There's 3 related questions. So the first are from a gentleman and his wife who are retired VA employees who work part-time for other healthcare institutions paying into Social Security. When they signed up for benefits, they only received a portion of what was promised. Question 1, do you support the repeal of the WEP, GPO, WEP, GPO? 2, what do you think the chances are the bill will pass and become law? And then the other question from someone else also said, do you support the repeal of the windfall elimination provisions?
Okay, the answer is yes, I do. Now, sometimes people give me a hard time because there are a couple bills that do that. One is led by a member of Congress named John Larson, a legendary member who is a champion for Social Security that wants to, in addition to eliminating the windfall, also secure this Social Security for decades to come. I'm on his side, if you will. So I picked his bill. I think that's the right approach. One bill just dealt with the windfall. Whichever bill gets to the floor, I'm going to vote for. So I do support elimination of the windfall. I'll be honest, though, I'm concerned. I mentioned the budget, and I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but you could imagine you're following this issue very, very closely. Now, I happen to be a moderate Democrat, so I got to be careful. I don't want to turn this into a partisan statement, but the other side wants to significantly ratchet down spending. And we can debate the merits of that or not debate the merits of that. They also say they want to protect Social Security. What I don't hear from them is they want to end get rid of the windfall protection and allow people their fair share of the Social Security that they've earned. I wish I heard more of that from the other side, because there is going to be some cost associated with that, but it's the right thing to do for people that have earned that benefit. So I certainly support it. I'll do everything I can to support it. In the current environment, I don't know if we're going to be able to get that bill over the finish line. We need to make some big decisions about what our budget priorities are going to be. I would say making sure people receive their fair share of Social Security that they have earned should be at the very top of that list.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. The UN recently reported that in the next 10 years, the planet will face catastrophic warming unless every country does its part to take care of the Earth. I know you're not a scientist, but what do we do? What is Congress doing to fight climate change and challenge our international partners to pull their weight?
I'm glad we're having this conversation now and not a year ago, because a year ago I would have given a very pessimistic answer to that, because I think we had made agreements in the Paris Climate Accord, international agreements, and then we pulled out of that agreement. Could you imagine the message to our international partners that the United States can't be relied upon, that we make a commitment and then we go backwards? I mean, we're the United States of America. We need to be the leader in the globe, the economic leader and the leader on important issues like climate change. Thank goodness, because of that, we mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act. As a result of that bill, we now will have the largest investment on climate change in U.S. history, including obviously changing major industries, the transportation industry. I mean, we're going electric with vehicles, thank goodness. And we're going to have electric charging stations, tens of thousands of them around the country. Now, it's incredibly important that we have that here in Arizona, because unlike other parts of the country, we're more spread out. And so if we're going to have electric vehicles become much more utilized, people need to have confidence that they're going to have access to a charging station. So that's why we need in Arizona to make sure that we get our fair share of those resources so that we can have that in our country. Now, that doesn't mean in any regard we're going to end the current use of reliance on oil, because the reality is, as part of this transition, we're going to need to continue in that regard. We're not going to put the United States in a situation where we don't have adequate energy supplies. So striking that balance between making that move to clean energy, but still making sure that we have energy security in the short run is incredibly important. And that's kind of one of the challenges in Congress, is to strike that balance. However, the rest of the world is moving forward. China's moving forward on this issue, and clean energy is the future. And the United States cannot fall behind our competitors on the issue of clean energy, including clean energy innovation, because there's a lot of jobs associated with it as well. So a year ago, I would have been a pessimist. Now I'm feeling much better about the United States' position, global leadership on the earth. But there's no doubt that the impact of climate change is impacting. I mentioned that we are in the worst drought in the desert Southwest in 1,200 years. I mean, the impact of climate change here in terms of extreme heat, which we're going to be going through this upcoming week, the drought, forest fires, the increase in the number and the intensity of these forest fires. You mentioned air quality. I'll be heading to D.C. soon. D.C. and New York are getting hammered from an air quality perspective because of the forest fires that are going on in Canada right now. So the impacts of climate change, I'd argue, are hitting the desert Southwest as much as they're hitting the coastal communities. We think of it as rising sea levels as the big impact of climate change. No, I'd argue extreme heat is just as dangerous, just as deadly, and needs to be dealt with appropriately.
Thank you. Congressman Stanton, why can't Congress act on gun control?
Whew. Well, the reality is there was a bipartisan compromise on some aspects of gun safety legislation in the last Congress, including finally changing the laws as it relates to relationship threats and being able to take guns away from people who had made direct threats, not just against their spouse, but now also dating partners or same-sex couples as well. That had been an exception to the law. We were able to eliminate that. But I'm a supporter of universal background checks. I think people need to, we need to make sure that they don't get a weapon in their hand, someone that has a felony conviction or other reasons why they should not have a deadly weapon in their hands. How do I describe it? The politics of it right there. I mean, the reality is that at this point, the votes aren't there for significant gun safety legislation that I think has to happen in the United States of America. I'm actually a supporter of changes to the size of magazines that one person can purchase. These tragedy of school shootings or mass shootings in certain locations. I hope and pray it doesn't happen here in our community, but it's gonna, because it's happening everywhere else. One way to limit the magnitude of the devastation is to say you can't have a magazine that has 100 clips on it. I mean, it's got to be a smaller number so that someone has to change it out every once in a while and give people in that horrific situation an opportunity to react. I think that's a fair compromise on a piece of gun safety legislation. The vast majority of Americans agree with this. The vast majority of Americans agree with this. Obviously, there is intense lobbying on the other side. The special interests on the other side are very, very powerful, and I don't want to lead anyone astray on that issue.
Thank you. Okay, this question. I've heard Republicans are trying to raise the age to collect Social Security to 69. What are the chances that this will pass? Would our payments be stopped until we reach the new retirement age if the age is raised?
Okay, so there have been a lot of discussions about Social Security and whether people are committed to protecting Social Security now and for the long term. I certainly believe that is a commitment that has been made. It's a contract. People pay into it. This is not a giveaway. This is something that people have earned. I know there have been proposals in that regard. I would say in the short run, I don't see that as realistically happening. I think now the Republicans are in charge of the House of Representatives. The Democrats are in charge of the Senate. So there is going to have to be a budget agreement. That's why I'm a little bit worried about a government shutdown, because they're very far apart at this time. But even on the Republican side, they want to significantly reduce spending, but they say they want to protect the military, they want to protect Medicare, Social Security, and Veterans Administration. I support that. I think it's the right thing to do. The real challenge is then, well, that means about 35% cuts in everything else, including Border Patrol, including, I mentioned SNAP and the food program, affordable housing, which is such an issue in our society these days. And so I think that's where there's going to be real consternation among Americans, is when they see on paper what the impact of those cuts are going to be. And we're going to have a soul-searching conversation. So I think that is a longer-term concern, but I don't think it's for this particular budget cycle, I don't see raising the eligibility age for Social Security to be an immediate issue.
That's great news.
For a while.
That won't happen.
Let's come back next year and see where we're at. But
yeah, that they won't probably not do that this year. Okay, sorry. I remember when politicians could agree to disagree. Now they just disagree. What happened to working across the aisle? Will partisanship go away, or is it the new normal?
Is it the new normal, and will it go away? I guess yes to both, right? I mean, this is really complicated. Look, just to be 100% frank with the people in this room, look, some people go to Congress and they want to become celebrities. They want to, be on TV all the time. They want to get as many Twitter followers as possible, or Facebook followers, or whatever social media they use. It could be lucrative, right? If you become famous in Congress, if you decide to be one of those members that say bombastic things and therefore get invited to TV all the time, and of course, if you say bombastic things, in order to get invited back, you have to say more bombastic things, and then more, and ratchet it up. And and obviously the media environment of kind of right-wing television over here, left-wing television over here, that helps to create this celebrity environment of politics is not a healthy thing for our body politic. But you become famous. I mean, you write a book, you can sell lots of copies. I mean, I write a book. I don't even know if my wife would buy my book. I mean, heck, no one wants to buy my book. That's the price of just being a worker bee, if you will, in Congress. But I do think it's a negative thing. The good news is that the percentage of people, as I mentioned earlier, that engage in that kind of celebrity politics on both the left and the right is a, not insignificant, but a minority of members. Most members are there to do good work, want to get the right thing done. We had a positive thing that just occurred. As you know, we were just a few weeks ago, we almost defaulted on the debt of the United States of America. And we can have a discussion about the debt of the United States, and that's a fair discussion. But who could disagree that if we were to default on that debt and the devastating impacts that it would have on the American economy and the devastating impact it would have on global leadership, because no one would be happier if we did that than China, who would then try to make their currency the currency of the world instead of the United States dollar that needs to continue to be the currency of international business, international trade. I mean, it would be devastating we almost did that. And we were able to overcome it by actually reaching a bipartisan agreement on budget caps. I didn't love all the choices that were made, but I voted for it. And the centrists on both sides came together. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, was bragging about this deal, but the truth is that actually more Democrats voted for it than Republicans. It was a true bipartisan deal. That was a win. I mentioned the FAA reauthorization, which does have some controversial and challenging issues. What do you do about the pilot shortage? Do you change the training standards and make it easier? Well, we don't want to make it too easy because it's devastating if you mess up, right? So the balancing act on that. What do we do to protect flight attendants who too often are the victims of? You see it if you watch TV or the internet, you see these viral videos of people physically assaulting flight attendants on airplanes, mostly because they drank too much alcohol in the airport as they're waiting for their delayed flight. That's got to stop. And so one thing we're trying to do is create a do not fly list. If you assault somebody on, American Airlines, you can't fly on Southwest or United either. They were claiming that it was somehow an antitrust violation. It's not. We're trying to protect people in that system. So that bill, which could have gotten very partisan, passed out of that committee 63-0. I mean, it was unanimous, and we decided it was more important to come together and do the right thing, even though we didn't get everything that we wanted in the bill, but to do the right thing. And that's where good government happens, is really, in my opinion, good governance happens at the center, which does involve compromise. The problem is you don't become very famous by selling compromise. You become famous by celebrating absolutism and that the other side's evil and all that kind of stuff. But actually, on that particular issue, I'm actually more optimistic that at the end of the day, the raging moderates on both sides are going to come together and actually say enough of the craziness and move our country in a better direction.
Oh, thank you. So we have an air-related question. What can Congress do to put a lot of air traffic controllers on the job? Workforce issues in the United States, not just air traffic. I mean, you could imagine maybe next to water, that's the biggest threat to our economy is we don't have a workforce. There are more jobs than people that want jobs in the United States of America. And so various industries spend a lot of time now in high schools trying to sell kids to think about careers in air traffic control or being a carpenter or becoming a plumber. Every industry is short on workers.
the current air traffic control force, I admire those people. They work long hours. That is a very stressful job. So we put a significant amount of resources in that FAA bill that I mentioned in trying to make it easier and less expensive for people to enter that industry, because we gotta reduce the hours that those people work, and we have to do all we can to reduce the stress under which the air traffic controller work. I don't need to tell anybody in this room. You may have saw in the Arizona Republic, there was a near miss at Sky Harbor Airport on the runway not that long ago that the FAA, or National Transportation Safety Board, is investigating. We haven't had a tragedy on an American airport runway, but they're having too many near misses. We need more air traffic controllers because the stress that they currently operate is it's just too much. But we have this, in terms of that industry, pilots, we need more people to choose to become pilots, and we need to look at ways that we can motivate more people and make it less expensive for people to participate in those very important and life-saving jobs.
Thank you. What are the prospects for a comprehensive immigration policy?
Comprehensive, you could tell the reaction of people that pay attention to politics. The honest truth is that a comprehensive policy, much like Senator McCain and Senator Flake led on not that many years ago. That was only like 10 years ago. And by the way, that comprehensive plan was bipartisan, led by 2 Republican senators, passed out of the United States Senate with almost 2/3 of the United States Senate. But it came over to the House back then, and there was a faction that didn't want any immigration reform, and they blocked the bill from even coming to the floor. It's probably the reason John Boehner retired. He said, I'm out of here, because a common sense proposal like that. But in the short run, what I am optimistic on is that more targeted immigration. Obviously, dreamers, the young dreamers that came here as young kids, were brought here by family and grew up here and are part of our society. Who can disagree that those people should have the opportunity for full participation, including citizenship in our country? Those are leaders, and I've had dreamers work on my political campaigns, and I've worked with them in the mayor's office, and it's just we're lucky in Arizona to have one of the highest percentages of dreamers in the United States of America. So when we finally pass the Dream and the Promise Act, it would be a huge shot in the arm to Arizona and the Arizona economy. I mentioned farm workers. A bill that got almost 40 Republicans to sign on was the Farm Worker Modernization Bill, which did allow farm workers, if they have worked in the fields, I think it was 10 years, for a significant period of time, doing that backbreaking work. It gave them an opportunity for getting a green card and to become fully part of our society eventually. Let me give you another area. How many people work with our senior community? That may not be fully documented.
Right.
They're providing great care for people. If they're taking good care of our seniors, shouldn't that person then potentially have a chance? So I don't know if we're going to do a fully comprehensive, but maybe targeted industries that people realize we need a workforce in that industry, and giving people a chance to be fully part of our society would be a beneficial thing as a reward for working in an area that we need talented people to enter.
Thank you. So you talked about water in your presentation, and the next question, if you want to add on your previous remarks, what are your thoughts on Arizona's water crisis, and what can we do to make sure we have water in the future?
Okay. Well, it's very serious, and we need to take it very seriously. I think we have been sleepwalking on this issue for a little bit too long. Now there's a flurry of activity, and that's at least better late than never that we're finally taking the issue very, very seriously. We need to make sure that I would say that every area of Arizona needs to be actively managed. Here's what I mean by that. Right now, Maricopa County and Pima County are in active management zones. You can't build anything in Maricopa County unless you have a 100-year guaranteed water supply. That's part of the you're all too young to remember Bruce Babbitt. Well, when Bruce Babbitt was governor, we passed the Groundwater Management Act back in 1980. It's an act that we're still benefiting from to this very day, that requires that there's a 100-year water supply. It's the reason why the governor said recently that for new developments on the very far outskirts of town, they're probably not going to be approving those because they won't be able to show the 100-year water supply. That's a sea change for the Arizona economy. You're going to see a lot more pressure in the more dense areas, including where we're having this meeting right now, for redevelopment, for infill development, because you're not going to be able to build on the outskirts of town for a while. There is still enough projects in the pipeline that the construction industry is going to be busy for a long time. But why not in rural Arizona? Why not? I mean, you probably read the headlines. This is something Chris Mays has focused in on, and that is the fact that water is so inexpensive in rural Arizona. And you're on state land, you actually pay one rental fee or a lease for the land, and you get all the water you want. It's so bad that a Saudi Arabian company has a massive farm in which they're farming alfalfa, not to sell here in the United States of America. It's so cheap, the water, that they take that alfalfa and they ship it back to Saudi Arabia to feed the cattle there, because they can't grow it there because the water's too expensive. Well, I mean, we're in a drought. We're in 1,200 years of drought. That is not good public policy, that we would allow an entity to come in and basically get such cheap water that it makes more sense to ship it across the globe to feed cattle there. We have to look at the pricing of water in the state of Arizona. Still, that everybody that needs it have access. There are a lot of people that are financially challenged, and we need to make sure they have access to water. But things like that, where there's massive farming operations that are making a lot of money, they should not be getting essentially free water from the state of Arizona.
Thank you. And our final question, and we've talked about this in your previous remarks, how does the drug price negotiation program work? When can we see lower medication costs? How do you prevent pharmaceutical companies from finding a way to pass the cost back to consumers?
Okay, all outstanding questions. First off, it's pretty crazy that we haven't been doing drug pricing negotiations previously. Why wouldn't we use the power of you? I mean, you meaning like people who are participating in the Medicare system, use the leverage of access to you as a population to negotiate those prices. Well, as you know, for a variety of reasons, mostly because of the power of the pharmaceutical industry in Washington, D.C., it's one of the most powerful special interests out there. They got exemptions. So they basically got to dictate the price to the United States government and not the other way around. Well, that can't stand, obviously, and doesn't make sense. So finally, we, for the first time, got the Inflation Reduction Act that included those drug pricing negotiations. There is actually active negotiations, but I think the maximum can be 20% above the average of our 5 other industrialized nations. So that way we know that at the end of the day, the pricing of pharmaceuticals in the United States, at least the ones that are participating in this program, maybe just, now they're like double, triple sometimes the prices that other countries pay. It'd only be about 20%, within a range of 20% of what other countries are paying for those same pharmaceuticals. I mean, there's still profit to be made. Mm-hmm. It may raise prices of pharmaceuticals around the globe, but at least the United States won't be paying the vast disproportionate amount of the profits for the pharmaceutical companies. That was fundamentally unfair. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's about 10 drugs, then it goes up each year from there. At the end of the day, every drug that is utilized both by the Medicare program as well as private insurance, all of it should get the benefit of the pricing reductions that are coming. It's just the right thing to do. We're talking about healthcare for people that need it. These are life-saving drugs. What was the second half of that question? I rambled on. I apologize.
How do we prevent pharmaceutical companies from finding a way to pass the cost back to consumers.
Okay, and I guess I did address it a little bit, saying, no doubt, by the United States taking this stand, because other countries, Europe has taken the stand. It was the United States that hadn't taken the stand because of the power of the pharmaceutical companies in the United States Congress. We're finally taking a stand, and do I think it's going to then result in some price increases in other parts of the globe? Yeah, but the main thing is that Americans aren't kind of getting the short end of the stick, if you will, that we're paying our fair amount, but not a disproportionate amount. The pharmaceutical companies would argue, well, we need that money for research and development. I'm like, okay, that's fine. They should get a good research and development program. We need it for innovation, et cetera. But the price of R&D shouldn't be exclusively borne by American consumers. That should be borne more fairly around the globe. So that's what I think is going to happen.
Mm-hmm. So, when we talk about the power of the big pharma, when Congressman Stanton and his colleagues were working on the Inflation Reduction Act, they spent $1 million on lobbying, trying to prevent just 10 drugs from being lowered, trying to prevent a $35 cap on insulin. And they were successful that the $35 cap could have been for everyone, but it's only in Medicare. So,
I made a pledge at the beginning because I knew when I ran for Congress, dealing with pharmaceutical companies, we had to take some tough positions against them to accomplish this goal. Doesn't mean I'm always going to disagree with big pharma, but I made a decision personally that in terms of the political money, I'm just not going to take money from pharmaceutical companies because that will allow me to be the best advocate that I can. I knew this was going to be one of the top issues that we dealt with. And so for me, I felt like that was the right thing, and it's paid dividends because it's freed me up to be a better advocate. All right, that was great.
Thank you. So
can I come back? I hope I can come back. This is great. That was a great audience. I appreciate it, and we'll do this on a more regular basis. It's always fun to hang out at Friendship Village. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Thank you, Congressman Stanton and Dora Vasquez.
Thank you
for joining us today. I hope your questions have been answered, and if you need to question either of them, I think they're going to be around